it's a massive rebound that you're seeing in digital advertising. We've seen that with Google as well. And this is Facebook's strongest quarter since 2016. Look, but I think it all comes down to what's happened with Apple on the iOS in terms of data privacy. There's really a Game of Thrones battle between Apple and Facebook. And I think that's really what investors are worried about. Could there be, some more headwinds on the horizon? I think it's a contained risk at this point, but that continues to sort of be a bit of an overhang on Facebook, which ultimately they fan the flames a bit by sort of calling that out a bit more than expected.
Do you feel, Dan, so for the iPhone users out there, and I'll admit I am one of them, whenever you open apps, sometimes now it asks you whether or not you want to contribute data, whether or not you want to allow app tracking, that sort of thing. And I got to imagine a lot of people are saying, you know what, this is my opportunity. No, I don't want to allow that tracking feature to happen. Is that going to be a permanent, almost like a secular headwind in terms of revenue growth for these companies if these phone companies and operating systems keep on giving customers the option of saying, no, don't let them track me?
Well, and ultimately, that's why it speaks as such an issue between almost, Cook and Zuckerberg and just Apple and Facebook, because Apple controls the kingdom of iPhone users, called 1.5 billion overall users of iOS. And that's the gut punch to the overall business model of Facebook in terms of digital advertising targeting. And I think investors have viewed it as a contained risk. But as we go forward, it is giving consumers that opportunity. And at the end of the day, that really is a headwind for digital advertising, which is the core DNA of Facebook. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from last night, is that investors feel like this is not going away, and definitely called it out a little more. But ultimately, if you look at Cook and Cupertino, they're going to continue to double down on data privacy going forward.
So Facebook is in the headlines today, 3.5% declines because of a possible revenue slowdown ahead. What else can we expect to see? I mean, they're not the only company that depends on digital advertising as a revenue stream. Who else stands to really be hit by this? And should this ripple effect have wider ranging implications for some of these other social media type companies or anybody dependent on internet advertising?
Yeah, I mean, the jury's still out in terms of how this ultimately plays out. I think if you go back when the iOS update initially came out, social media, of course, Google, Snap and others, Facebook really front and center, that's been the worry. Now, they've shook it off. You've really seen almost a Goldilocks tech earnings season so far. But around the corner for social media, there's worries because as Apple, remember, in future iOS updates, they're going to continue to really double down on this data privacy. And it puts Apple on the other side with social media companies. And that's why it really becomes more and more of a battle that goes at the core business model. And that's the broader worry, as well as regulatory scrutiny that you're seeing both in the Beltway as well as Brussels.
All right. Speaking of a company that's making inroads in digital advertising as well as customer data, let's look at Amazon.com. That company is set to release its results after the closing bell today. What exactly do you expect to hear or see from today's report on Amazon, another company that has done so well in the midst of the virus pandemic?
Yeah, and I think with the strong continue to get stronger. And that's really the theme that we've seen over tech earnings season. I almost call it a gold medal performance from the likes of Apple, Microsoft, and others. I think the big focus is Jazzy obviously taking over for Bezos. Big focus on AWS in terms of cloud. I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion market opportunity over the next decade. Is Amazon losing share to Microsoft? Look at those Azure numbers, or are they starting to see a reacceleration? And then, of course, the e-commerce play. I mean, it's no secret in terms of Prime, as well as even just the COVID impact. They continue to really monetize in an unparalleled way. But I think a big focus, Dom, is going to be AWS growth, cloud, because remember, that's a big part of this cloud arms race.
And Dan, before we let you go, do you have a call on Amazon right now, a recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, look, we continue to view, obviously Amazon's strong name, but for a cloud play, we'd rather own Microsoft here because I think they're net gaining share over Amazon.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.